My child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something shifted today. Something happened in the life of the person whose heart is tied to yours, and since that moment, they have been trying to reach you in ways you may not yet understand. They may not have found the courage to call. They may have written a message and erased it. They may have opened your name, stared at your picture, and closed the screen again because their hands began to tremble. But their spirit has been calling toward you with an intensity that heaven can no longer allow you to ignore. They are not simply thinking about you tonight. They are falling apart beneath the weight of something they discovered, something they heard, or something they were finally forced to admit to themselves. And the most astonishing part is this. Everything that happened today has led their heart back to you. Pause here. Do not rush away, because the first thing you must understand is that this did not begin today. Today was only the moment the walls finally cracked. For weeks, perhaps longer, your soulmate has been carrying an invisible pressure inside their chest. They have smiled when people looked at them. They have answered ordinary questions with ordinary words. They have continued with their responsibilities, pretending that everything was under control. Yet beneath that calm appearance, a battle has been growing. One side of them kept saying, "Stay silent. It is too late. They may not want to hear from you." But another voice, softer and more powerful, kept whispering your name. That voice became louder each time they tried to ignore it. And today, something occurred that made silence feel more painful than the truth. You may have sensed this before receiving this message. Perhaps a sudden heaviness came over you without explanation. Perhaps you remembered them at an unusual hour. Perhaps a song, a place, a number, or a memory appeared before you and touched something you thought you had already buried. You may have wondered why their energy felt so close when there had been no visible sign from them. My child, the heart often recognizes movement before the eyes receive evidence. What you felt was not proof of a promise, and it was not a command to chase anyone. It was an invitation to become still, to notice what was rising within you, and to understand that an unfinished emotional truth may be approaching its moment of revelation. Do not skip what comes next, because what happened today was not merely an inconvenience in their life. It became a mirror. Your soulmate was confronted with a situation that forced them to see the difference between the life they have been pretending to accept and the life their soul has quietly desired. Someone may have asked them a question they were not prepared to answer. They may have heard your name spoken unexpectedly. They may have seen something that reminded them of the way you once looked at them, the way your presence made them feel understood without needing to explain everything. Or perhaps they watched another person receive the kind of love they once had the chance to protect with you, and suddenly the truth became unbearable. For a long time, they believed they could outrun what they felt. They told themselves that time would weaken the connection. They assumed distance would turn the memories into something harmless. They tried to place logic over longing, routine over emotion, pride over honesty. They may even have convinced other people that they had moved forward. Yet every path they took away from you carried a hidden echo of you within it. Every new beginning felt strangely incomplete. Every conversation lacked a certain depth. Every room became quieter after the noise faded. They could distract their mind, but they could not deceive their spirit forever. Today, that deception ended. There was a moment, brief to everyone else, but enormous to them, when their entire inner world changed. They suddenly understood that what they had been calling confusion was actually fear. What they had been calling bad timing was partly avoidance. What they had been calling emotional strength was often a refusal to become vulnerable. And what they had been calling moving on was, in many ways, simply learning how to function while missing you. This realization did not arrive gently. It struck them all at once. Their breath changed. Their thoughts began racing. They searched for somewhere private because they could no longer hold the expression on their face. And when they were finally alone, the first name that rose inside them was yours. My child, understand this carefully. They are not falling apart because you have done something wrong. They are falling apart because the truth they postponed has returned with greater force. Regret is not always loud at first. Sometimes it begins as a small discomfort, a thought pushed aside before sleep, a sentence left unfinished. But when regret is connected to genuine love, it gathers weight. It waits behind the person's daily life. It watches every choice. It compares every shallow connection with the one that reached deeper. And eventually, one ordinary moment opens the door, and everything that was hidden comes rushing through. That door opened today. Your soulmate remembered something specific about you. Not merely your face. Not merely a conversation. They remembered a moment when you offered them something emotionally rare. Perhaps you gave them patience when they were difficult to understand. Perhaps you saw their pain beneath their silence. Perhaps you believed in them when they were uncertain of themselves. Perhaps you stayed gentle when they expected judgment. At the time, they may not have understood the value of what you gave. They may have received your love while still being too wounded, distracted, proud, or frightened to honor it properly. But today, the meaning of that moment returned. It returned with such clarity that they could no longer rewrite the story in a way that protected their ego. They saw your goodness differently today. They realized that you were not demanding perfection. You were asking for honesty. You were not trying to control their life. You were hoping they would stop hiding from their own heart. You were not asking them to become someone else. You were inviting them to become truthful about who they already were. And now, after everything that has happened, they finally understand the difference. This is why their emotions feel so intense. They are not only missing you. They are grieving the version of themselves that failed to recognize what was sacred while it was close enough to touch. But there is more. Your soulmate has been carrying words meant for you. These words have changed many times. At first, they wanted to explain themselves. Then they wanted to defend themselves. Later, they wanted to apologize. Now, after what happened today, explanations no longer feel sufficient. They know that clever language cannot repair what silence damaged. They know that saying, "I was confused," will not fully express the depth of what occurred within them. They know you may have questions they cannot answer without exposing the parts of themselves they have worked hardest to hide. Yet they also know that if they remain silent now, they may lose the opportunity to tell you something that could alter both of your lives. This is the struggle taking place inside them at this very moment. Their heart is moving toward you, but fear keeps pulling them back. They are afraid you have closed the door. They are afraid you will see their message and feel nothing. They are afraid you will remember the distance, the mixed signals, the absence, or the choices that made you question your worth. They are afraid that the love they finally understand may have awakened too late. That fear is why they keep reaching and retreating, writing and erasing, imagining the conversation and then convincing themselves not to begin it. Stay until the end, because there is a deeper reason heaven is revealing this to you now. It is not to make you wait helplessly. It is not to tell you that your happiness depends upon another person's decision. It is not to ask you to abandon your discernment, your dignity, or your healing. This message is reaching you because your own heart is standing at a threshold. You have changed. You are no longer the person who would accept fragments and call them devotion. You are no longer meant to shrink so that someone else can avoid confronting themselves. You have learned painful lessons about patience, boundaries, self-respect, and the difference between spiritual connection and emotional confusion. The person trying to reach you may still love you deeply, but love must now arrive with truth. It must arrive with responsibility. It must arrive with the courage to name what happened, not merely the desire to escape the loneliness that followed. This is why the delay has felt so intense. Your soulmate needed to reach the point where missing you was no longer enough. They needed to understand you. They needed to see what their choices created. They needed to recognize that a connection cannot be restored through emotion alone. Emotion may open the door, but honesty must walk through it. And today, for the first time, they became willing to consider telling you the whole truth. Not the edited version. Not the version that makes them appear innocent. Not the version they rehearsed for others. The whole truth. This truth involves a decision they made when they were afraid. It involves something they allowed you to believe because correcting it would have required vulnerability. They may have acted distant when they were actually overwhelmed by the depth of their feelings. They may have appeared indifferent while privately watching for signs of you. They may have chosen another direction because it looked safer, easier, or more acceptable to the people around them. Yet what seemed safe became a prison. What looked easier became emotionally exhausting. What appeared acceptable to others began to feel unbearable within their own spirit. Today, someone or something forced them to face the cost. Perhaps a person close to them finally said, "Why are you still pretending?" Perhaps an argument exposed the emptiness they had been avoiding. Perhaps they were asked to make a commitment their heart could not honestly make. Perhaps they saw that continuing on their current path would carry them even farther from the life they truly wanted. Whatever the outer event was, its purpose was the same. It broke the illusion that they could keep living divided. Their reaction surprised even them. They did not remain calm. They could not simply laugh it off. Their emotions rose too quickly. They felt anger, grief, longing, and regret all at once. But beneath all of those emotions was one clear recognition: I need to speak to them. I need to tell them what really happened. I need to stop hiding. My child, something huge is waiting for you within this unfolding story, but you must not mistake urgency for permission to abandon wisdom. When they reach out, and the energy around this moment suggests they are closer than they have been before, listen not only to the emotion in their words, but to the truth within their actions. Do they take responsibility? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they acknowledge your pain without making you comfort them for causing it? Do they come with clarity, or only desperation? Your heart can remain open without becoming unprotected. Compassion does not require you to forget what you learned. Heaven has been strengthening you for this moment. The nights you spent wondering why you were not enough were not evidence of your inadequacy. The silence that made you question yourself was not a measurement of your value. Their inability to speak clearly reflected their inner conflict, not your lack of worth. You were never difficult to love because you desired consistency. You were never asking too much because you wanted honesty. You were never wrong for feeling that something deeper existed while also recognizing that the connection, as it was, could not continue without transformation. That transformation has now begun, but it is not complete. Your soulmate is standing in the first painful stage of awakening. They can see what they lost, but they have not yet proven they know how to protect what they wish to recover. They can feel the truth, but they are still gathering the courage to speak it. They can imagine reaching you, but they do not know how you will respond. This uncertainty is tearing through them because for the first time, they cannot control the outcome. They must come without guarantees. They must risk being seen. They must risk hearing that their delay caused consequences. And this is the very vulnerability they avoided before. There is a scene unfolding around them now. They are alone, or they wish they were. Their mind keeps returning to one particular memory. It may be the last meaningful conversation you shared. It may be a moment when you nearly told them everything. It may be the look in your eyes when you realized they were pulling away. They remember how you tried to understand. They remember what they failed to say. They remember the moment they could have chosen honesty but chose silence instead. That memory has become impossible to escape tonight. They have asked themselves a question repeatedly: what if I had spoken then? What if they had told you they were scared because the connection felt too real? What if they had admitted that their distance was not a lack of feeling, but an inability to manage it? What if they had said that other people's opinions influenced them more than they wanted to admit? What if they had confessed that they compared everyone to you after you were gone? What if they had stopped pretending that they needed more time when what they truly needed was more courage? These questions are breaking something open inside them. Yet the greatest revelation has not come from regret alone. It came from understanding what your absence has taught them. Without your presence, they began to recognize the emotional safety you brought. Without your voice, they noticed how rarely they felt genuinely heard. Without your care, they saw how many connections in their life were based upon convenience, image, expectation, or habit. You did not need to compete with anyone. Time revealed the difference. And now they are terrified that time may also have taught you how to live without them. That is the fear beneath their falling apart. It is not simply that they miss you. It is that they sense you are no longer waiting in the same way. Your energy has changed. Your soul has become less willing to chase explanations. You have begun recovering pieces of yourself that were once trapped inside uncertainty. Even if you still love them, that love no longer has the power to make you abandon yourself. Somewhere within them, they can feel this transformation. They know they cannot return with the same patterns and expect the same access to your heart. This is why today's event became so overwhelming. They realized they may finally be ready at the exact moment you have become ready to walk forward without them. But listen closely. Divine timing is not always about bringing two people together immediately. Sometimes it brings truth to the surface so both people can make a free and conscious choice. Heaven does not force love. Heaven reveals, strengthens, exposes, and guides. What happens next will depend upon honesty, maturity, and action. Your soulmate may be approaching you, but you are still allowed to decide what aligns with your peace. There is another hidden layer to what happened today. Someone knows more than you think. A person close to your soulmate has noticed the change in them. This person may have seen them become quiet when your name was mentioned. They may have noticed how they react to reminders of you. They may have challenged them about the contradiction between what they say publicly and what they feel privately. And today, this person said something that cut through every excuse. They told your soulmate, in one form or another, that they were about to lose something real because they were too afraid to be honest. Those words stayed with them. They tried to dismiss them, but they could not. They became defensive at first because truth often feels like an attack when someone has spent a long time avoiding it. Yet later, when the noise faded, those words returned. Your soulmate began replaying every moment where fear disguised itself as logic. They saw how often they waited for a perfect sign instead of creating an honest conversation. They saw how they expected you to understand feelings they never clearly communicated. They saw how they silently hoped you would remain available while they took time to confront themselves. And then they realized something devastating. You may have interpreted their silence as a final answer. This is the moment they began falling apart. They imagined you believing you were unwanted. They imagined you blaming yourself. They imagined you replaying conversations, searching for what you did wrong. They imagined the loneliness their silence may have caused. And for the first time, they stopped seeing the story only through their own fear. They saw it through your heart. They saw what you endured. The realization filled them with shame, but also with determination. Shame says, hide because you failed. Love says, tell the truth because they deserve it. Right now, those two forces are struggling within them. One is pushing them deeper into silence. The other is leading their hand toward the message they have not yet sent. You must understand why they hesitate. There is something they have never told you, and it changes the meaning of a past event between you. It concerns the reason they pulled away when the connection seemed to be growing stronger. You may have assumed they lost interest. You may have believed another person mattered more. You may have thought they were playing with your emotions or deliberately keeping you uncertain. Their behavior may indeed have caused pain, and they are responsible for that. But the hidden reason was more complicated than what appeared on the surface. They received information. They heard something. They were warned about something. Or they became convinced that loving you would require a choice they did not feel strong enough to make at the time. Instead of coming to you directly, they allowed fear to interpret the situation. They made a decision based on an incomplete truth. And today, they discovered that what they believed may not have been true at all. Do not move away from this message now. Today, a missing piece appeared. A conversation exposed it. A message revealed it. A person contradicted an old story. Something your soulmate accepted as fact suddenly began to collapse. They realized that a major decision, one that affected the connection between you, may have been built upon misunderstanding, manipulation, assumption, or someone else's influence. The shock of this discovery is one reason they are emotionally unraveling. They are not only grieving lost time. They are confronting the possibility that they hurt you while believing something that was never fully true. Now they are replaying everything. Your words make more sense. Your confusion makes more sense. Your attempts to reach them make more sense. Even your eventual withdrawal makes more sense. They can see moments where you were waiting for an explanation they did not know how to give. They can see how their silence may have confirmed the very thing you feared most. And the deeper they look, the more they realize that you may have been honest all along. This is the truth pushing them toward you tonight. But before you allow hope to rush ahead, remain grounded. Their awakening does not erase the past. Their pain does not automatically repair yours. Their realization is important, but it is only the beginning. They must still speak. They must still clarify. They must still demonstrate that this new understanding is strong enough to become new behavior. Heaven is not showing you their emotional state so that you will rescue them. You are being shown this because the next chapter may require you to listen with both compassion and discernment. Your power is in your stillness. Do not chase the message. Do not force the timing. Do not send words from anxiety merely because you feel their energy. Let truth come toward you. Let the person who withdrew become the person who chooses courage. Let them cross the distance their silence created. Your role is not to make their confession easier by pretending you were never hurt. Your role is to remain honest about who you are now. Your soulmate is closer to reaching out than they have been in a long time. They have formed the first sentence repeatedly. Sometimes it begins with, "I need to tell you something." Sometimes it begins with, "I am sorry." Sometimes it begins with your name and nothing else because emotion takes over before the words can continue. But there is one sentence they are most afraid to send, because once it is spoken, they can no longer hide behind uncertainty. That sentence is not simply, "I miss you." It is deeper. It is an admission that their life changed after you. It is an admission that they made choices they now regret. It is an admission that the story you were given was incomplete. It is an admission that what happened today exposed the person, fear, or misunderstanding that stood between you. And it is an admission that they have been carrying love for you while pretending they could live without expressing it. Something extraordinary is about to be revealed, but the full truth has one more layer. Your soulmate has not only discovered something about the past. They have made a decision about the future. This decision is why the energy feels so urgent. This is why their emotions are overflowing. This is why they keep returning to your name. They are considering taking an action that could change the direction of their entire life, and they know once they take it, there may be no easy way back. They are preparing to step away from something that has kept them emotionally trapped. It may be an expectation, a false commitment, a controlling influence, an old identity, or a path chosen to please others. Today's event showed them that remaining where they are would require them to betray their own truth. But leaving will demand courage, consequences, and an honesty they have never shown before. And before they make that move, they need to tell you what really happened. They need you to know why they disappeared emotionally. They need you to know what they were told. They need you to know who influenced the choice. They need you to know what they discovered today. Most of all, they need you to know that the moment you believed they stopped caring may have been the moment they became most afraid of how deeply they cared. Yet there is one final detail they have not decided whether to reveal. It is the detail that could change how you understand every silent day between you. They fear that when you hear it, you will either finally understand them, or close the door forever. Tonight, they are staring at the truth, holding their breath, and preparing to place it into words. But just as they were about to reach you, another message arrived on their phone, and the name they saw on the screen was connected to the secret that separated you in the first place.